Hi, hello everyone. So last time we left off, well, with basically our explosions and collisions. And this time we're actually going to do sprite fonts and maybe create a high score. So for that tool that I'm going to use to create sprite font, and I'll explain what sprite font is actually bitmap font generator. As you can see, similarly to our sprite sheet, we're going to actually create characters as well. So every character is going to be some part of the texture. So that's how are we going to render. So it's going to be exactly similar to like on this sheet where we use sprites. Here we're going to use characters instead. And for that, we need to have also information about our characters, and that's in sprite font XML. So I'll explain how to download these files, but it will also be included in GitHub in ending video as well. So we just have some character information, and don't worry, not all of this is important. Important stuff I'm going to explain now. But basically we're going to get this sprite sheet, and then we can here inspect it a bit. So these values, are which ones. So we're going to use those values. So what's going to be important? If I take a look at some character here, it's going to be important ID, and the ID is nothing but an UTF encoding of a character. So here, for example, I was looking at A, it's 61. So if I were to look for 61 here, it's going to be character A. Then we're going to have X and Y. So they're not normalized, so we're going to have to normalize them, but they're saying, okay, X is on, if we take a look, maybe here it might say something like, all right, A is on position 200 and something, and then 200 and something in Y. So 401 in Y. It's going to have width and height, which is basically in pixels width of a character and then height of a character. So, right, it has width, height, position. So that's simple enough. And then we're going to have to use X offset, Y offset, and X advance. And that's going to be mostly it. So X offset, as you can see, A is here, but we might need to offset it a bit, right? Because look at the height of this character and look at the height of A. A is here is obviously a lot smaller, so this is where X offset and Y offset come into play. So we're going to use those to correctly space the characters in relationship to one another, so that our final string looks nice. And then we have also X advance, and that advance is saying, okay, next character should start from a where, right? So where does the next character start? So it's all going to make sense once we do it. So with that said, let's actually start. And the first thing that I'm going to need is to create our sprite font. And sprite font is nothing but a simple class that's going to hold our character information and basically our texture. So we're going to have sprite font. Then here, let me see how I do it. We're going to have something called sprite character, and it's going to have. So now for this texture coordinates, since we cannot use rectangle anymore, it's not as simple as that. I'm going to store these texture coordinates in some kind of class, which is going to be quad. And we're going to export it as quad. And then we need to store, if you look at here, for example, Q, we have to store top, then this information, corner, top right, right, bottom right, and bottom left. So let's do that. So we're going to have top left, that's quite alright, top right, bottom left, but I'm going to go like this with these corners, and this needs to be constructor, and I need the body. So we're going to need that. Then we're going to need to have public size, and this is our width and height. Then we're going to need advance. So that's what this X character that I mentioned. So it's saying, all right, we're drawn T, how much do we have advance for the next character? So that's what advance is going to represent. And finally, these offsets that I mentioned because of the size of the characters. And with that said, that's it for our character. And now we have to actually create a class that will hold all of that. So we're going to have here something like Charles maybe. So ID is not going to be string, it's actually going to be our Unicode number. So we're going to fetch them by their IDs, right? Which is this UTF. I do believe JavaScript is using UTF, I'm not sure actually, but I'm going to this. Anyway, we're not going to have that many characters. And we're going to need the texture as well now. And you can store line height. I'm not going to use it, but if you want to advance correctly, if you have some multi-line string, right, or multi-line text, then you would need to use it probably. So let's have get character. So we're going to get it from our character code, which is Unicode, and then we're going to need our create character. So we're going to take good number. Let's see. All right. Texture codes. So we're going to need texture codes, size, advanced offset, and then we just fill in the data. Right? We store it into a dictionary. That said, our sprite font is actually complete. So we actually need to load these fonts. So let's do that now. So to load fonts, I'm going to go to content and I'm just going to create at the end somewhere new method, which is going to be private static high async. So let's see how I'm going to call it. I'm actually going to say load no b sprite font. If you want to create implementation for some other tool, then you can as well. I didn't find that much tools online, but usually I used, but it only works on Windows, so that's why I avoided it. Font loader, something like that. I use this one as well. It's pretty good, but it's not for Mac, so no luck here. But this tool is really amazing. It's an online tool and it's probably good enough. So we're going to need XML pad. And then we're going to need texture pad. All right, and we're going to return promise, our sprite font. So let's just hide this on the side. So here, first, I'm going to load the texture. And then we're going to do the similar stuff as before. We're going to load all. So we need to load the texture, and then this XML, and we're going to parse it. So with our XML, we need parser, we need XML document, and one of the global variables that I'm going to need from basically our sprite font sheet is actually line height. So I'm not going to use it that much, but you can if you want to. I mean, I'm not going to use it because I'm just going to display text for a simple high score, but if you want to have multi-line text, then you need to use it. Let's see, what do we need for that? So we got that. We're going to create our sprite font, and then we need to loop through each of the characters in our XML, and then we're going to fetch that is data, so ID, our position, width, height, offsets, and advanced X. So let's do that. Let me just see if this is correct. Query selector. This was called common. And get attribute. This is line height. So a bit of wrong suggestions, but quite alright. So we're going to need ID. We're going to parse it from our ID. And that's, like I mentioned, it's just UTF code for our character. And then let's get our X position, Y, width, height. So further we're going to need the X offset. And then we need Y offset. And we're going to need the X length. That covers that part. So we need to normalize, like I mentioned. Normalize the texture coordinates. So if we take a look at here, I'm just getting, let's say for this one, I'm just getting it and then dividing by width and height to get something between 0 and 1. And then we need to create our quad, which is not a rectangle, actually it's new quad. So first top left, then top right, bottom right, bottom left. We're good here. And then I can just use font, create character, and then I just need to pass all of this data in to create a character. And then I can just return it. I think that should be it when it comes to loading. Almost. We actually need to load it now. And for that, I can just create public static sprite font. And then we can load it. So here it's in assets, sprite font.xml. Is it? It is. Alright, that's it. If I save it, if it loads, seems like sprite font is loaded correctly. So we now have to use it actually, and for that we're going to create a new method in our sprite renderer. So here I can just shamelessly copy paste this and then, so just take draw sprite with source, can copy it, paste it, and then we're going to modify it. So let's just call it drawString. So what are the parameters? Let's actually remove this, just not bothering me. So we're going to need our sprite font as a first parameter, our text as a string, position, which will be which is of vec2, so position of this on the screen. We can have our color, which is the default color, and finally I'm going to actually use scale with a default value of 1. So texture, here we have a check for texture. So let's first resolve this. And texture we fetch from our, let's just say constant texture sprite font, and we fetch it from sprite font texture. So we can leave this. This is kind of important. We can leave this as well, but here we're going to create a loop for it. Since I'm using I here, I'm going to use J now. And then at the end of the method, we can just close it here. And here you can see we're using new batch draw call. And we're not going to use new. We're actually going to have to reuse this one. Because as you can see, we're going to look through the text. And then we have our instances. And when we don't have enough to draw, we create a new batch draw call. But I'm not going to use that. I'm going to assign this one. Now, because we're going to have to reuse it as we go further through through all of the characters. All right, let's see further what I'm going to need. Two, five. Okay, here we have this. Actually, we need our character. So it's not like this actually. We use our J and then we ask for our unique character. And then we can get from our font our information about the character. So we're going to need that. Then this is probably, this can remain the same. And we increase it here. So that's good. Next, what we're going to need, we're not going to use this. We're actually going to say const x. And here, so we have our sprite font offset. I'm not using advanced here, so let's say advanced character is 0. And then at the end, we can say advanced character. And not time scale. I'm going to take care of it a bit differently. And here, I'm going to add this advanced character text. So what are we doing? Like I mentioned, we might draw at position 100, 100, let's say here somewhere. And then we might have a character. What's this? A character. And we're at some position 100 by 100. All right. So we need to take care of this x offset, right? For example, here y offset is a bit large, right? Because we're using small character as opposed to a. So a here might not have y offset at all, but here a is smaller, so we need to offset it by y and then x. So this might be wider than a, for example. So we need to take these offsets into account. But anyway, let's say we have our a. So we're going to have advanced x. So that's going to say us where the next character is beginning. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So, and then we can at the end just use scale to actually make that characters larger or really small. All right, that's covered. So this is similar, but we just don't have advanced character, right? Because we're actually just going to have our characters as this. And then if you need to draw a new line, you can use that line height and then create a new string. Or better yet, you can create a new call to draw string. You're going to see how it works at the end, but let's cover our width actually. And our height, similar. So we already used this v0, so we can reuse this, and as you can see here, we can just get rid of this rect and it should work. So what are we doing here? Well, v0 was our top left corner, v1 was our top right, bottom right, and then bottom left. So we can just get rid of this. We don't have rotations, so let's remove this code. And finally, we're almost there. We just need to make use of our texture coordinates now. So I'm just going to use A, B, C, and D. So we just fetch those. And I could say A here, A0, and A1. So this is top right. So here it's C, Let's bottom right and finally bottom left. All right. I think that should cover it. So now we just have to test it. So for that, we can go to main, and here we can just say sprite render draw string. So we're going to use content sprite font. Let's just say hello world and back to from values. Let's actually move it to 100 by 100. And it works. Beautiful. And also we can check if the colors are working. Let's just go with green. Okay, that's working. And finally scale. That works. That works as well. So if you need smaller or larger fonts, it's probably best to play with the tool and then select different font sizes, right? Because you can see some pixelation here. But you can also use linear filtering. I think we're using nearest here. Exactly. So if I was to change this to linear, that tool should smooth it out a bit, right? But still, I'm still not happy with it. So usually what you can do is just assume what your game is going to use and then create different sizes here of fonts. You can play with that. With that said, final thing that we need to do is actually I'm just going to display some high score, and for that I'm just going to have class that's going to keep our high score, and it's a really simple class. It's going to have private read-only position, and it's going to be vector 2, somewhere 1010 is fine. We're going to have private current score is 0, and then we're going to have draw. And here I actually need sprite renderer. Content is fine, color can be undefined. We can use default white, and then we can scale it to 0.5, and this is all right. And finally, we need to make use of it, and so we're going to use it in our enemy manager. And high score should actually be under game because it really belongs to game. And then in our enemy manager, we're going to use it. Private with only high score. We can use that class, and somewhere when we collide with bullet and enemy. So here we can just say high score plus equals 10, for example. And actually we need to use current score, which I think I made it private by mistake. It should be public. And finally, in our main, we need to create a high score. We need to pass it, and we need to draw it. And something is broken because here I need to resolve it. And now we're good. So if our bullet collides with our asteroid, we get high score. So that's it for this video. Hopefully it wasn't too hard to follow. I mean, loading of bitmap fonts which are just represented by sprite sheet is really simple. You just have to get sense of which data corresponds to what. So with that said, that's it for this video. If you liked it, like the video, subscribe. You can also join Discord channel. I'll leave everything in the description of the video. And the next time, actually, it's going to be quite exciting because we're going to cover post-processing. All the best.